This kid looks like they're editing their MySpace page. She doesn't need to be doing that. They don't even realize that we were watching. I always like to mess with them and take a picture. 9 times out of 10 they duck out of the way because they don't, and then they shut down and they get right back to work.
It's the stuff horror films are made of.
Hello? Yumi? Are you there?
Someone watching you, listening to you through your cell phone.
It's just a little spooky.
It happened to this man. We'll call him Dirk. He wants to keep his face and real name private. She could hear him wherever he was.
She knows too much.
Dirk has his suspicions how it was done, and we do too. So does San Diego private investigator Dennis Kerwin. The PI says the technology is out there.
You can use any open cell phone as a listening device.
And now anyone can do it.
You carry a device in your pocket that has an eye and an ear.
A quick search online for spy phones and dozens of different products pop up. For as little as $8, you can monitor text messages and see what numbers are being called. For just $150, you can listen in.
Now here's another little article here, which is interesting to do with adaptation. When cell phones were first given to the public, like everything else is given out for the public to buy. Now if they ordered you to get a computer and said it's law, you've got to have a computer, or they ordered you to have a cell phone, you'd be a bit suspicious. So what you do is you put out there, you do massive advertising campaigns, and you will buy it thinking it's fantastic. Meanwhile, there's a good reason that you've got it that's good enough for you, but then there's a real reason. The real reasons never come out till much later once you're addicted to it. And this is again to do with cell phones. Also from the BBC News, on the 4th of June 2008, mobile phones expose human habits, by Jonathan Fields, science and technology reporter. The whereabouts of more than 100,000 mobile phone users have been tracked in an attempt to build a comprehensive picture of human movements. The study concludes that humans are creatures of habit, mostly visiting the same few spots time and time again. Most people also move less than 10 kilometers on a regular basis, according to the study published in the journal Nature. Results could be used to help prevent outbreaks of disease or forecast traffic, the scientists said. This is the excuse are given to the public. It would be wonderful if every mobile carrier could give universities access to their data because it's so rich, said Dr. Marta Gonzalez of Northeastern University, Boston, the U.S., and one of the authors of the paper. Dr. William Webb is a nice name for you. They love giving us webs because we're in a web. Head of Research and Development at the UK telecoms regulator, Ofcom, agreed that mobile phone data was still underexploited. This is just the tip of the iceberg, he told the BBC News. I'll be back with more of this after this break because it's an interesting article on how you're being monitored and watched as you pay for it.
Our software is not intended to find lost cell phones. It's really meant to have many people in the police force moving together and know where they are, or if it's the military, Blue Force tracking to avoid friendly fire. I asked an intern to take my iPhone, it was actually my personal iPhone, and walk around the block. And so we saw her on the map walking around the block, and then the icon of it started moving away from our offices, and we didn't understand what was going on. So we were getting on the phone about to call her, because she was carrying my cell phone, and the intern burst in the door crying, saying that she had just been mugged, and a thief on a bicycle had grabbed the cell phone from her and had ridden off with it. We actually considered, when the robber was robbing this, of turning on the camera and seeing if we could see where he was from that, but we figured he probably had it in his pocket and it wasn't going to help much. Probably within less than a minute, the person on 911 had talked to a dispatcher who sent the police car after this person, and so it was really quite exciting. I was calling out the location and direction of the bicyclist, and the police car was following the directions.
Introducing Google Latitude. Latitude is a new feature on Google Maps. that allows you to see where your friends and family are on a map and easily keep in touch with them. To start sharing a location, just send an invitation to a friend or accept if they ask you. You have complete control over your privacy even after accepting invites. Let me show you how Google Latitude works. I'm signing in to Latitude, then adding friends from my Gmail contacts. When your friends accept, you can see them on your phone. For example, Ali shared his location with me. He's currently in Cairo visiting his friends. My friend Alice is one of my surfer buddies. We keep in touch through Latitude. Let's see what the swells are like. I'm glad to see that Mom and Dad arrived home safely from the airport. There was some bad weather in New Jersey. Oh, look at this. Looks like some of my buddies are nearby. Playing tennis? Well, maybe they're free for dinner. My mom doesn't have a mobile, but I can still share my location with her through iGoogle on her computer.
The internet search engine Google has admitted accidentally copying household computer passwords and emails. The information from wireless networks was collected when its vehicles drove around residential streets, taking photographs for its worldwide Street View program. It's not known whether UK homes are affected by the breach. Earlier, Google's spokesman, Peter Barron, explained what action the company was taking to remedy the mistake.
We've never used this data for any Google product, and we never will use it, and our top priority now is to delete it, and we're working very closely with the authorities to make sure it is deleted. We're also determined to learn the lessons from this mistake, so in recent months we've been working very hard on our privacy procedures, and we've just announced that we have appointed a new director of privacy. We've also announced tougher measures on training and on compliance.
Well, let's get more on this from our technology reporter, Daniel Emery. They weren't using it for any Google product, as we just heard Peter Barron say. So why were they needing to gather this information in the first place?
Well, it's not being used for a Google product, but the thinking behind it at the time was it might have been used for a Google product. When Street View, they started coming up with the idea of basically mapping your streets and taking pictures of everywhere. It was about 3-4 years ago, and GPS wasn't very prevalent, and certainly it was still quite an expensive bit of kit. So what they were looking for was how can you map where somebody is on the map without relying on satellites? And the idea was basically that they would plot you by using the signal strengths from different wireless networks, and they can work out roughly where you are. If one to the right of you is 10 strength, the other was 6 strength, you were about there. So it was basically a mapping system to find out where you physically were on the map by using wireless.
But one would think in that case it's almost like walking around with a mobile phone and watching how the bars go. Why would it be necessary to actually look into the computer and pick out emails and passwords?
Could you be friends with government agents on Facebook and not even know it? In very creepy news, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has obtained documents that reveal 2 ways in which the government has been tracking people online. The first is a surveillance of social networking sites to investigate citizenship petitions, which includes government agents going so far as to friending people to learn their online secrets. Now, just to show how clueless the Department of Homeland Security agents really are about what it means to be on Facebook, listen to this following line from their memo. Narcissistic tendencies in many people fuels a need to have a large group of, quote, friends linked to their pages, and many of these people accept cyber friends that they don't even know. This provides an excellent vantage point for FDNS to observe the daily life of beneficiaries and petitioners who are suspected of fraudulent activities. So basically, if you're a suspected narcissist because you have a lot of Facebook friends, you're also suspected of fraud? Give me a break. Now, the second way they've been monitoring online is through a special command center that collected and analyzed online communications public communications during Obama's inauguration. So sites like NPR and Daily Kos were being watched.
Now, just how powerful are big corporations? We heard about their role in lobbying, but listen to this. The website Cryptome published a Microsoft document that showed the company stores private user information. Well, what happened? Microsoft had the site shut down. Joining us now is the site's creator, John Young, from our New York studio. So, Mr. Young, why do you think you're such a big threat to Microsoft, and how did they get your site shut down?
They used a sly technique of the copyright law, which allows instantaneous shutdown, basically, and does not require a court order or litigation to do so. And it's a very common tactic that corporations are using right now to censor the web.
Now, why do you think you're such a threat to Microsoft?
Well, I think it's not only a threat to Microsoft, it's a threat to their client, which is the law enforcement agencies, who do not want the public to know that this is going on. So I think that Microsoft is just fronting for the law enforcement people.
In other news today, the Rudd government is considering making it legal for companies to intercept employee emails without their consent. What's the thinking behind that?
Well, Terry, this is all being done in the name of national security. It is just a proposal at the moment. The government is concerned about potential attacks aimed at computer networks. The Deputy Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, says that it's crucial to ensure that important networks like running things like the stock exchange and electricity grids aren't open to attack. Here she is speaking on the Today Show again.
Our technology is a big infrastructure issue these days. If our banking system collapsed, if our government electronic systems collapsed, obviously that would have huge implications for society. So we want to make sure that they are safe from terrorist attack. Part of doing that is to make sure we've got the right powers to ensure that we can tell if there's something unusual going on in the system. So it's a national security move, not a move about, you know, an unseemly interest in people's private emails.
Well, still at home, and censored government documents outlining controversial plans to spy on unsuspecting internet users have been revealed. Top-level government officials have been in talks with the internet industry over a proposal to log and store the web activities of every Australian, even if you're not suspected of committing a crime. Then the data will be made available to law enforcement agencies around the country.
Now, the government had intended to keep this plan under wraps. However, the largely censored documents were obtained under the Freedom of Information laws, with 90% of the detail crossed out with a thick black marker. So what exactly are they hiding?
For more on this, we're joined by tech expert and managing editor of gizmodo.com.au, Seamus Byrne, and in Melbourne, online privacy expert Colin Jacobs from Electronic Frontiers Australia. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Seamus, why would the government want this information? It seems a lot of information to be collecting on every single Australian and their internet activity.
Yeah, I mean, their argument is that this would be similar to laws that are already in place in Europe, and that this is based on being able to combat terrorist activity, and that's sort of how it came to be in Europe. But